and welcome back to Serendipity Intended. My name is JJJan, and I am so glad you are here. It is time for another day in Junk Journal January, and I am doing that challenge here in my Hobonichi Techo. Today is day 14, and the prompt is morning. So because I am using my daily planner, I am going to day 14, and that's where I'll begin, right here. And I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted to go with this prompt, but I had this photograph here and these papers, and I wanted to use them in large part because they really are a little bit different than what I normally use. I like the sort of orangey, peachy pinks in the papers, and the top that the woman in the photograph is wearing has a little bit of those same colors. So I thought that plus the blue of the sky were really great colors to use. And with it being in the middle of January, I needed a little bit of bright, warm, and sunshine. And really that's what morning means to me. It's that time of day when everything is bright and crisp and fresh and new. And that was, I guess, sort of the feeling that I wanted to capture. So I did have an idea that perhaps I would like to do, I don't know, a sun, like a sunrise, since it was morning. And a little bit unconventional, but I decided to make the sun out of this floral shape, in part because it was the largest piece that I had of the three, and I wanted something that was a fairly good size, but also because it wasn't completely obvious as a sun. So even though I kind of am thinking I am going to make a sun, I didn't want it to be 100% literal. And so that's where that came from. I also decided that I wanted the sun to be just a little bit off the page and not centered so that the girl would remain the focal point and not the sun. The sun would kind of become a little bit of a background image. I then decided that I really liked this watercolored paper with the stamping on it, and that I would use that for my son's rays. My first thought was that I would trim it, and then I decided that I wanted it a little bit more organic than that, and so I ended up cutting the strip instead. So, how are you doing with your prompts? I am a couple of days behind, both in terms of doing the prompts and also posting. It's a crazy time of year at school, and I'm making time where I can. And I've just decided that that is okay, in part because it has to be, but also because the point of all of this is to relax and to create something that makes me happy, and not to have to stick to a rigid timetable or plan. And so that does mean that I don't necessarily post as consistently as I would like. And I thank you for your patience with that aspect of my life. I realized as I was doing this that this is actually the second time in this challenge that I have done something with rays of light. And I started to question myself, like, oh, am I repeating the same thing? And maybe even started to kind of get down on myself a little bit. And then I decided that it was probably a response to the gray that is January in Maryland, where I live, and that it really is okay. And I do think that in this case, the rays and the sun totally make sense with the prompt. And as I was assembling this, I was really kind of falling in love with the kind of boho look that this was developing. That was not necessarily something that I had in mind at the start. But as I was gluing and assembling the pages, it started to kind of more and more get that boho vibe. And I have to admit, I really like it. I sometimes go that route in the summertime because I do like that look in a summer journal. But I don't usually lean that direction when I'm doing winter prompts. And I don't know, maybe I should. Now, if you remember, I didn't completely glue the girl down to the sun, nor did I glue the sun down to the page. And I decided that I wanted a little bit something more between her and the sun, just to offset her a bit. And I remembered that on the page there was this circle that had some text in it. And so I thought I could use that circle to kind of help her pop a little bit more off the page. So I had to play a little bit with where I wanted it to sit in terms of the text that was going to pop through. And then I went ahead and adhered that down more permanently. Now, before I glue the main part of the sun down, I also thought it needed some blue because the morning sky is bright and blue. And so I thought I'd just add a little bit of watercolor. I didn't want a lot because I didn't want the paper to wrinkle too much. I did realize as I was going down that I ended up with a lot more blue at that one section in the bottom left than I had originally intended. And I came back a little bit later off camera, added some water to that and lightened it up a bit. And that will be drier or lighter when it dries. It was close enough to dry though that I could write. So I just did some asemic writing. I was writing, here comes the sun, here comes the sun, but not really so much that it could necessarily be read, just to give a little bit more texture. I think I might go back and actually, when I do the journaling on this page, I think I might journal around the sun as well, just to kind of continue that visual image and let the journaling kind of become part of the page. More than likely that will be something that's a little bit more private, so I'm not going to add it here on camera. Right, now that I'm pretty satisfied that this part is done, I'm going to go ahead and add some glue. It's not a little bit more awkward than it probably should have been, gluing that down the way that I did, but it was already adhered in the center and I didn't want to take the chance of tearing the page, so I just went ahead and did it that way. The girl was a little bit easier because she wasn't attached at all, so I was able to glue her in a more normal fashion. So, you know, when you look at a page and you think to yourself, I don't really like that. I did this and I'm not super happy with it. So this was kind of the point at which it just felt flat. And so I thought, well, let me try the white just to get her to bounce off the page a little bit. And it kind of worked, but not really. I did decide that I liked I liked it on the blue and sort of pushed the watercolor back a little bit, but the white wasn't doing it. So then I tried a crayon, or excuse me, a chalk marker, because I thought that might be a little bit darker than the distressed crayon. And it was, but it still really didn't do much for me. So I pondered some more. And then I thought, okay, I'll try a white Sharpie, and that was really not working very well on the wet background, the distress crayon. So I did add a little bit to her outline, and I liked that, but that wasn't it either. Then I decided that, oh, maybe it's the blue circle and it's bugging me. It's a little bit too precious there. So I tried to remove it, and that wasn't happening because the glue had set long enough. So I just tore some of it off, and then I actually decided that I liked the rough, distressed texture that it left behind. And then maybe what I really needed was something a little bit darker. So I grabbed a darker brown distressed crayon, and that was a little bit more of what I was looking for. So again, kind of taking that boho vibe and extending it just a little bit further. I do like to add text to my pages, um, particularly when they feel like they tell a story. And this was definitely one case where I felt like it was telling a story. I thought this quote, "No beauty shines brighter than that of a good heart," would be a good one for this page. Add a little bit of color around and behind where the text was going to go, just to kind of help that pop out. And went a little nuts and actually used orange, which I don't normally do. But again, I'm glad that I did. It kind of continued that sort of boho vibe that I had going. Um, Even a little bit more white on there. The thing I love about those distressed crayons and those chalk crayons is that you can smudge them a little bit if they aren't quite right. So they're pretty forgiving. Anyway, this definitely did not end up where I thought that it was going to, but I'm sort of excited with how it turned out. And, I guess following your muse and letting serendipity happen is always a good thing. Anyway, that's today's prompt. I hope you make yourself a great day.